an idea, a couple of the comments concern, you'll see this, I put in a couple of places where plans or things are reviewed by the building official. That may not really be the case. We may not want to use our building official. We may want to say that that should be someone from the fire district, and maybe with the intergovernmental agreement or something that would provide for that. I'm aware of that. I didn't know how to handle it. Russ was out of town. There are some issues that have to do with the monitoring of these systems. If they should accidentally discharge or someone tampers with them, there is a way of having them monitored remotely, where the fire district would be notified if there was an issue. Say that the sprinkler goes off when someone's out of town, I guess, if someone does something to it, vandalism or something. Those are some other issues that I don't have enough information on, and I didn't fully address them in this draft. And I think the last major sort of decision point that we'll have to come back about is this idea of whether this applies to new construction and a substantial alteration. Lincolnshire Rural Fire Protection District does require it in both cases. In the unincorporated areas, I essentially modified and kept their standard. I almost put it in bracket, but I just thought I would mention it to the board. I don't know if that is actually the test in FPA 13D, that it says if it's a substantial alteration, you also require sprinkler. If that was...
No, that's an add-on.
That was an add-on.
Chief Kruger has made it very clear that the way he reviewed that is if someone came to Ford and said that they had a very good reason why that should not apply, and you agree with them, we would understand.
I think there's even one other place here where the chief is able to make some kind of modification if someone's going out of town for a long period of time or something like that. There was some statement in here about the chief having authority to waive certain conditions when someone
I
was...
think it had to do with something that might freeze.
Something that might freeze. So there are a couple of points here where we need to get some more information to know whether that would apply here, and if so, how we would, who would administer the village in those instances.
The only thing I would add to it is I just would like you to be aware, number one, that I'm very appreciative that you're taking this step and looking at this. Secondly, that Lincolnshire has asked me to speak before their village board, not this next meeting, but the following. Matawa has also asked for the same thing. So you are actually leading the way at this point. And if there's anything that we can do to help you with this, we're more than happy.
Ready for any questions?
Yeah.
Okay. On page 2, and maybe the attorneys, which we have, the very last line refers to a nationally recognized testing laboratory. To me, as a non-attorney, that sounds very vague. I'll defer to your judgments as to whether it is vague or not. You got any thoughts on it? Is it overly vague?
I mean, I think
It's
people
legally
realize
vague,
it's like
but
underwriter's laboratory.
it's usually.
Like underwriter's laboratory.
Right.
That's what I'm
That's how we
thinking,
would-
something like that.
There's only, I think, 1 or 2 companies like that. I think underwriter's laboratory is pretty much monopoly.
Monopoly, yeah, pretty much.
You know, so you can probably just use UL. It's in there.
I
But we use like,
National Fire Protection Association, that also has.
I will find out who
But it's
actually does it.
nationally recognized, I mean, that.
I'll find out who is actually, who
Okay,
actually
I
does
just-
this.
I just
because-
would like to pin that down a
you should
little
see,
more.
you know, we see it documents all the time. It says a nationally recognized overnight mail carrier for notices. They notice must be delivered by a nationally recognized.
Okay.
And everyone knows it's
If
like
that's an
UPS.
acceptable legal term, that's
You know,
fine.
we see it
That's
all the
posted.
time, nationally recognized body chemists. That doesn't necessarily mean Chapman Company.
Used to, basically. Okay. I had a comment, unless Bill's done.
Please.
I'm through, thank you.
One of the comments I had, which was regarding the substantially altered provision, I thought it would be problematic because the way it's defined now, you have it where the estimated alteration cost equals 50% or more of the replacement cost of the whole dwelling. So now we'd have to actually have that appraised somehow.
That's
And
expensive.
now the village is gonna have to come up with some mechanism by which we can appraise what the whole house would be worth. Otherwise, you have to put something in the ordinance which obligates the person to do this every time they come in for a permit. So I don't know, that I just didn't think it's gonna be workable, I think that needs to be fixed.
We have to do about size rather than.
Yeah, you do by square
And then
footage.
the other thing that I thought about on that would be that maybe, and I'll defer to the chief here, that maybe you should have it where it would apply to the altered area, but maybe it shouldn't apply to the whole structure, because if someone's got like a 50-year-old structure and they're putting a new area on, it may be really cost prohibitive to add it to the old structure, but as part of the new structure, it might be a much more simplistic thing to do. So, and you're still making advancements, you know, maybe someone would elect to do the whole thing anyhow, as long as he's doing it, but I think to mandate it for the whole home would be just difficult. So that was only my comment.
And we understand that concern, we really do. We own homes too, and we don't want to be unrealistic in expectations. I think I brought up at the last meeting that the concern is someone who does a significant tear down, or even just leaves a wall standing and then rebuilds, could avoid putting in sprinklers if there was not some kind of language in here to address it. And once again, if you determined that you felt that it was unfair to ask the homeowner to put in the sprinklers, if they came in and said, this is why I'm asking for this, I do have that home you've described, and it would be cost prohibitive, and the board said, we understand and we agree with you, the fire district would be okay with that.
But I think square footage is a much more reasonable way of doing it, value.
Absolutely. We have, Cheryl.
In addition to that, I had a lot of questions about cost. And I'm hoping maybe Ross or somebody could check out some sprinkler companies for us, not only for new construction, but if you're doing renovation, is the price the same? And is it the same depending upon, does it differ depending upon what kind of structure you're building, 1-story, 2-story, whatever? And what the increase in cost is if you're on a well. I know you had approximated that. I just wanted to check on those costs. And then whether or not some of the things in the ordinance add to the cost, like item 6, the monitoring, item 8, and items 10 and 11, whether or not those add to the cost. And then also in 9, I thought 7 days was kind of a short period. And I would think we should extend that. But my biggest concerns are, I think we need to get a handle on what this would really cost people so that we know what we're talking about. I know we have a lot of different kinds of structures here. And my...
Well, we're not talking about the existing structures, we're talking about new construction. New construction and more than 50% of the whole.
If we're only talking about doing the new part of the more than 50%.
Right,
Right,
that's all we're talking about then.
right. But I do wonder if there's a difference in cost if you're talking about, complete new construction versus adding on and 1-story versus
Sure, I
2-story,
think
that sort
one
of
of
thing.
the brochures we got said that it was about 50 cents a foot more if it was in a renovation.
Right, I know, that's exactly why I'm asking the question. So I'd like to hear some real numbers from some of these companies.
I think that would be great also. We have done those surveys, but I would love to have you do it also to make sure that you get the same information.